Good afternoon, this is Chandra Easton here. I'm speaking to you this afternoon about the light of transcendence. I'm an esoteric healer, an esoteric psychologist and astrologer. You'll find information about these very interesting subjects at my website, Living in Light, *astrologyhealing.com. And this is a teaching that is from more than a decade ago, a talk that I gave in Iceland. And what I'm speaking about is the science of light and how light approaches the Earth and approaches humanity from galaxies far, far away, and how it how we actualise it and become embodied beings of light. And this energy steps down to us through the constellations of the Great Bear, through Sirius and Pleiades, and every single human on Earth has a role and a part to play in accessing this light and integrating it so that we can become lighted beings. I'll be speaking about the seven rays, the known seven rays, that this is how pure white light differentiates into the seven frequencies. I'll be speaking about the sacred planets in our zodiac and how we can embody them to lift our consciousness. The primary tool that I'm referring to that is a book called The 17 Steps to Perfection. This is an absolutely brilliant meditation book by Nanda Tarashan, and it's a book where we can meditate on the planets in our solar system to assist us in embodying the energies and purifying things in our personality that need healing, and so advance and ascend into greater light to a state of, eventually, maybe not this lifetime, but in lifetimes to become a perfected soul. As I said, it's very much an introduction to what is an absolutely vast subject. I'll be speaking with the group in the room about their natal charts. The latter part of the teaching is pure esoteric astrology. I'll be talking about the soul ray and how we can narrow the gap between our personalities and our soul, and ways to use these tools, primarily this fabulous book of Lady Ananda's. And you can find that at maitreyatheosophy.org. You can ask for information about the updated version of the 17 Steps to Perfection through heartflowworldwide.org. And I invite you to go to those wonderful websites which are resources for these legacy of teachings of the Lady Ananda. I'm a pupil of hers, and I've just done my best in the last few decades to integrate some of the incredible teachings I've received from her, and this is the experience that I bring to this vast subject. If you're a student of the esoteric, either just a brand new student or someone who's been dipping your toe in the water like myself for years, well, then I invite you to enjoy this teaching. Okay, so that's I'll just pass it over now, and the lecture starts quite abruptly with me speaking about the Holy Ascended Master, the Lord DK. Thank you. Okay, so we have light. We know esoterically, the Lord Dwell Cool tells us in his book Esoteric Healing that and esoteric psychology that there are 7 visible rays of light. We also know from the esoteric sciences that there are 3 invisible rays, which will be revealed, I believe, over the next couple of thousand years. So at the moment, we have the sort of the red, the gold, the green, the blue, the white, the violet. What have I forgotten? We don't count black. Black is sort of the oneness, the beginning and the end. And this is the light spectrum, but what people often don't realise is that the light can be used for therapy. And as we move into the age of Aquarius, deeper into the age of Aquarius, which is governed by 2 of the streams of light, it's governed by the violet stream, which people commonly know of as the 7th ray. And you'll hear people talk about the incoming 7th ray, and what they mean is that we're having a wave of violet light coming in, and violet is the frequency that transforms and transcends. But we're also having a wave of blue and white light coming in through the 4th ray. these rays, as they come in, they begin to affect everything on Earth, and we can use them, we can harness them. Okay, really all the rays are connected to white light. White light is the cosmic connection, and it's just broken down into the different frequencies because that's the way it can be best used. Okay, let's start from the galaxies far, far away. What on earth have they got to do with our spiritual growth? Well, everything. You know, some of the galaxies are, I don't know, thousands of light years away. And yet, from a spiritual perspective, we know that time doesn't really exist. Yeah? Time doesn't really exist from the Buddhic plane up. It exists on the physical plane, the etheric plane, the astral plane, and the mental plane. But from the Buddhic plane up, time doesn't exist. So, you know, yes, it might be so many light years away, but we can get there like that. All we have to do is get ourselves to the Buddhic plane apart. Okay. This is a diagram that represents the triangle, the upward pointing triangle of the soul, which is open to receive one particular frequency more than another. It's a bit like, I don't know, something in your garden will like a certain fertiliser. Something else in your garden doesn't like so much water. According to what your soul ray is, you're going to really thrive if you receive the frequency that your soul is evolving on. The other frequencies will be useful and helpful, but there's one frequency that's particularly connected to you. And if it takes you, however long it takes you to find out what that frequency is, it's worth figuring it out. Okay, and this is what we call the soul ray. Then we have the downward pointing triangle that's associated with the personality ray. This is our ego. And that also will respond to a particular frequency. Yeah? And once the personality and the soul are in harmony, then we'll have the six-pointed triangle in the middle, which is the balance of the personality and soul. And this takes some doing, as any of us on the spiritual path know. We go up, we go down, we go round about. Okay, so the energy of the Milky Way holds the 12 signs of our zodiac, but it holds also many other constellations that are not in the middle of the Milky Way, but that are around it. Okay? And these, a fundamental principle of theosophy is that every physical atom is the vehicle for soul essence. So, my body is the vehicle for my soul, and Neptune is ensouled. Yeah? The planets.
Yeah, can you repeat it?
Every single physical atom, whether it's a planet, yeah, a solar system, a human person, is ensouled. So you have to get used to the idea in theosophy that the planet Earth has a soul, Venus has a soul, Mars has a soul, and is ensouled by enormous light beings. Yeah? Enormous light beings, and each one of the planets is distributing and harnessing a particular frequency or ray. And if I were a musician, I'd be also saying, and a particular note. Yeah? So when they talk about the symphony of the zodiac, they literally mean the symphony of the great beings who are healing and working through those planets. This is fundamental esoteric principle. And you could say that those beings who've been through the Earth school of hard lessons and karma and completed it reside in the heavens. So when we look and we realise that maybe the ancestors would look to the stars for information or look to the stars for their gods, esotericists believe the same thing, but not exclusively. So we will say, okay, well, there can also be holy energy in a waterfall or, you know. in an enlightened being if they're still in their body on the earth. What we're interested really is how can we capture these rays. Because what the rays do is that in the right combination, the right recipe, they speed up our evolution. Yeah? So it's important to know that angels transmit the rays also. Do angels ensoul clouds? Why not? Do angels ensoul waterfalls and trees? Why not? And we have small transmitters and enormous intergalactic transmitters. Yeah? There's a lovely example of all the rays coming through what we'd see as a stylised angel. In actual fact, the angels don't really look like that. Really what the angels look like are ever moving shades of light with focus around the eyes or the heart. Okay, so the soul as transmitter. Remembering that we're trying to get this light down from the galaxies far, far away to my big toe, yeah, and everything in between. Okay, so the soul transmits, and this is an image, famous artist, Danish man, I can't remember his name, I can't see it on the picture there. Anyway, beautiful, beautiful art. And this is an image that he's done of the solar angel that overshadows one's personal self. And often people don't realise that, yes, we all have a soul, but because if I've got too much hatred, too much negativity, too much fear sitting in me, my soul actually can't come into the body. So it has to hang around. Okay? Hang around. And unfortunately, there's not enough people who are what we call soul infused, where the soul has cleaned up and overtaken the physical and the emotional bodies, and so is present at home most of the time. Yeah? For most of us, the soul we can attract the soul's attention. You can do it through prayer, you can do it through meditation, you can say help. I think help's a good one. Because you see there's a lot on the inner worlds of light that actually takes our soul's attention. So the things that bring our soul's attention to us are selfless service to others, a sincere desire to change ourselves for the better, a willingness to want to work unselfishly for the greater good, or anything we study that will bring us closer to the light of our soul. These are the kinds of things that attract our soul's attention. And if we don't do enough of that, the soul gets bored. It turns away. Okay? Unless you call help or, you change your habit. Okay, the planets transmit. This is what people often don't realise. This diagram is an attempt to show you the rays as they're coming down through the planets that are circling around our sun, and then from there through the angelic transmitters in the soul to the people. Okay? So, how are these rays caught? Which constellations, which zodiacal signs catch them, and how are they disseminated? Here's another diagram. You can see up the top we've got stars in the Great Bear. Well, we were in the hot tub the other night and Eldo was pointing out the Great Bear. Yeah? And there are stars in the Great Bear that transmit the first ray. The first ray is on soul level a deep blue and is associated with the divine will and power. Yeah? Then we have three constellations, Aries, Leo and Capricorn, that are particularly associated with the catching. If we're talking, for example, of the first ray here, I'm not talking about all the rays, I'm talking about the first ray. So Aries, Leo and Capricorn particularly capture that energy. Then it comes down through the sun, and then the sun transforms and sends the energies out through all the other rays and the other planets. So you'll see the notification that says the 7 sacred planets and the 4 non-sacred planets. It's no surprise to anyone on Earth to realise that we're living on one of the non-sacred planets in our solar system. We kill each other. Yeah? Yeah? So our planet's non-sacred, it's in a mess. Mars is also non-sacred. Pluto is also non-sacred, and the Moon. Yeah? Now these 4 planets, imagine you've got a classroom of 12 students, and 4 of them just don't want to learn and kicking each other and biting each other and not coming and generally misbehaving. The whole class can't progress till the next level until these 4 students get it together and cooperate. That's us. So we're holding up the solar system. We're holding up Jupiter and Saturn and Venus and Neptune and Vulcan. What have I forgotten? Mercury and Uranus. They've all reached a level of purity, but they can't evolve. Our solar system can't move to the next level because of the 4 non-sacred planets. And then our solar system as a whole is holding up the galaxy. And the galaxy is then holding up the universe. So you could say that we are involved in the creation of the most enormous traffic jam. And it's not just us. It's not just us, but, you know, they call us the laggards. If you read in the theosophical literature, you'll hear of the laggards on Earth. This is us. We're late. We're late for consciousness. We're late for light. We're late for divinity. Okay, so I'm going off the track here. Such an interesting story, but I guess what I would say is that there has been an intergalactic decision to give Earth help because they're bloody well holding up the show and they can't get it together by themselves, and they had this lesson to learn, and the lesson was love. Our solar system has a lesson of love, and the people on Earth can't get it together. Okay, I won't talk about the help. I'll continue with the Great Bear. Okay, now the energy that comes through Ursa Major, the Great Bear, is particularly streamlined and of a frequency. You know if you have a whistle that you blow that only a dog can hear? Yeah? The energy from the Great Bear is like that. Only the leaders of Earth who are in a body respond to the energy of the Great Bear. This is the very strong Shambhala energy. They respond to it on an individual level. The rest of us get it in group formation, because if we got the Shambhala energy one-to-one, I'd be fried. I wouldn't even have toes. Okay? It's very, very strong, powerful, dynamic energy, and it's captured by the enlightened people on Earth, of whom there aren't many, okay? Who then disseminate it. Yeah? So it's step down. Now the energy, the most potent energy is step down. And then the second level of energy that comes in through our solar system, and it comes through the, you see the bright star Sirius, the second brightest star in the southern hemisphere. Sirius brings through an energy that the disciples can capture and are meant to capture and meant to work with. So what I mean by the disciples are those souls who have stopped playing with the idea of getting it together and are seriously doing it, life after life, rather than thinking it's a great idea and then getting involved in personal pursuits or whatever. Okay, so the disciples have a dedication to the commitment for the uplifting of light all over the planet. Yeah? Generally have tough, hard lives, not meant to complain about it. They're the ones that are meant to catch the light of Sirius. Yeah? And in group formation can also work with the light of the Great Bear. And then we have the 7 sisters of the Pleiades. And the 7 sisters of the Pleiades disseminate a much more gentle light that the ordinary people are affected by. Yeah? So we have different light for different levels of consciousness on the planet. And that's a very simplified version, because really we don't fall into 3 nice neat groups.
Yeah? We don't fall into the ordinary people, the disciples and the enlightened ones. What happens is that there are people who are moving between the ordinary and the disciples. And unfortunately sometimes going back the other way, but generally not. So sometimes we're getting a bit of both. Yeah? The energy from the Pleiades is a much more gentle energy. It comes through the seven sisters, who are known in old mythological literature. Okay, most of us recognise the beauty of light. And occasionally we see the transcendence of it through nature. Here's a nice Icelandic light picture. Yeah? There. Yes. Okay, so the light from the galaxies far, far away is coming through the sun and then out to the planets. Yeah. And there are hordes of angels who work in the energy of the sun, solar angels. Now this is where you need to start thinking about your chart, and I'll explain it as I go along here. So if you have, let's just start with Vulcan for instance, the planet Vulcan, and I should say that if you mention the planet Vulcan to an astronomer, they'll say, what planet? Doesn't exist. There isn't such a thing. Never found a planet. Who told you there's a planet called Vulcan? Well, the esotericists believe that this planet is so close to the sun that we haven't found it yet. Okay? Lord Decay's prophesied that it will be found early in the new century. Anyway, the energy of the planet Vulcan particularly comes through the sign of Taurus. So if you have the moon in Taurus, or you have the sun in Taurus, or you have Taurus rising, then Vulcan is one of the rays that is particularly connected to you. So what I'm talking about here is the moon sign, the sun sign, and the ascendant. And the code for this is that the moon sign, and everyone's got a moon somewhere in the chart, is where the personality prefers to be. It's the ego. One of the points of the chart where the ego is. The sun sign is the point that your soul's up to at the beginning of this life. What step were they up to on the path? Yeah? The ascendant, and everyone can find their moon and their sun. Yeah? The ascendant is a point that will help your ascension into greater light. So those three are easy to work out. The one that's harder to work out is what is the soul ruler. No, that's easy to work out too. The one that's harder to work out is what is the soul ray. So for instance, if, let's say I've got Taurus rising, yeah, then Taurus is governed esoterically by Vulcan. And Vulcan brings in the first ray. So I would know that if I were to meditate on the meditation that Ananda's given in the book, 17 Steps to Perfection, on Vulcan, that will help me. It may not be I may not be a first-rate soul, but it's going to help me because my ascendant's Taurus. Yeah? So, do you know what I'm...
So, if a person has both got a moon sign and the sun sign in Taurus...
If they're a double Taurus.
Yes.
Yes.
More than that, actually. I'm thinking of my daughter.
Yeah.
So Vulcan is something that will help her.
Absolutely. It depends how old your daughter is.
21.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I know.
Yeah. But if she's interested in meditation, you see the exoteric ruler of Taurus is Venus. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the exoteric simply means the worldly ruler. But if you're looking for working with to bring in the spiritual light, then you meditate on the soul ruler. Yeah. Okay? And it doesn't matter whether it's your moon or your sun or your ascendant. It's going to be very specific to you. Yeah? Simply because you've got Taurus in one of those three places. Okay, so does everybody know it for you? But you see, we're complicated people. And I guess I don't want to confuse you too much, but let's say we have one ray that is the soul ray, but there are a few rays that make up our ego. Yeah? But there's only one in any one life that is the soul ray. Okay, let's move on to Jupiter. The planet Jupiter, and I should say that the first ray brings in the energy of divine will, and the frequency is deep blue. So whenever you meditate, as soon as you close your eyes, you feel blue, that's a bit of a clue. Yeah? Whereas the energy of Jupiter, transmitting the second ray, is particularly connected to people with strong Aquarius, because Jupiter governs Aquarius. Yeah? So that's the moon in Aquarius, or the sun in Aquarius, sun in Aquarius, or Aquarius rising. Yeah? You can't go wrong meditating on Jupiter whenever you feel out of balance, if you've got Aquarius there. Yeah? Jupiter.
Aquarius in moon. Aquarius moon.
Aquarius moon, yes.
Yeah, is it then got good to meditate on?
Yes.
That planet.
On the planet Jupiter, that's right. Yeah. Yes. And of course, you see here we have a sun in Taurus, but the moon in Aquarius. Now, the first and the second ray are very different, and a bit hard to put the two of them together. The second ray is called the ray of love and wisdom, and it's gold. Yeah? The first ray is all about will and power, and it's blue. Yeah? So you might alternate between the Vulcan and the Jupiter. Okay, let's talk about the planet Saturn. The planet Saturn does transmit the third ray, and it's exactly the same. Very few of the rulerships are the same, exoterically as esoterically. It rules Capricorn. Yeah? On both sides, it rules Capricorn. So if you've got the moon in Capricorn, or you've got Capricorn rising, or the sun in Capricorn, then working with the energy of Saturn will be very useful for you. And the energy that will come through is an emerald green, but it'll often have a pink around it. Yeah? Okay, Mercury. Now Mercury is transmitting and it's active intelligence. Okay, and it's the ray of activity. Mercury is connected into the fourth ray, the ray of harmony through conflict, and being a dualistic planet, it has two signs it's connected to. It's Aries and Virgo.
No, Gemini and Virgo.
No.
No, esoterically.
Esoterically, Aries.
Sorry, yes.
Yep, that's right. And that's people often think, oh, Mercury rules Gemini. Yes, it does on a worldly level, but on an esoteric level, it's Mercury rules Aries and Virgo. So if you've got the moon in Aries or Virgo, or the sun in Aries or Virgo, yeah, or the ascendant in Aries or Virgo, you can't go wrong meditating on the planet Mercury, yeah, through the 17 steps to perfection. And you'll discover, if Ananda says in the book that she's written, that there's a few ways you can do it. You can either start at the front of the book and go all the way through. And the purpose for this is that this is a book that will take us to soul infusion. I don't know whether Ananda says that in the front, but anyway, that's what the book's about. If you work with the energy of the planets and suppose you work with every planet on the basic exercise and the advanced one, it would take you, 3 years, I think.
3 years?
Yeah, if you did, let's suppose you start at the front of the book and you go all the way through, there's 17 steps, and then there's the rhythm of the universe, that's 18 months, and then you did it again with the advanced ones, it's another 18 months. Yeah? So it's going to take you 3 years. It would be very, very lovely to think that one could actually gain soul infusion at the end of the 3 years. And maybe we're not all that disciplined. Yeah? But in theory, this is the promise from this book, that it will take you from not only onto the path of discipleship, but it will move you very rapidly to the point of soul infusion, which esoterically is referred to as the third initiation. And then beyond that, there's other work to do. So this book is very specific for people stepping onto the path and moving through the path. Whether it takes us 3 years or 3 lives, it's a code book. Okay. All right. Now the planet Venus transmits the fifth ray, called a love in action or concrete science, depending on how you've heard of it. Yeah? This is the one that governs Gemini. Gemini. So if you've got the Gemini moon or the Gemini sun or the Gemini ascendant, meditate on the planet Venus. Okay. Okay. And then we have Neptune. And the energy that comes through from Venus is also green, but a different green to the Saturn green. It's more of a bottle green. Okay, and then we have Neptune, sacred planet of the 6th ray. And again, it governs and connects to 2 signs of the zodiac, Cancer and Scorpio. Okay? So, Sun, Moon or Ascendant in Cancer. Yeah? Neptune's perfect for you. Suppose you're the Moon in Cancer and Scorpio rising. You've got both of those. Yes? You've got what?
Scorpio rising.
Scorpio rising. And what's Cancer?
No.
No?
Just like a Sagittarius.
Yeah. But if, for instance, you had Cancer and Scorpio strong, work with Neptune. You see, what you've got to remember is that they operate. Once we've started to work a lot with our Moon, then we can progress to working with the Sun, and then we progress to working with the Ascendant, and then we progress to working with the ruler of the Ascendant, and then we progress to working with the Sol ruler. And the last one's the hardest one to work out. Okay? So if you've got the Moon in Taurus and you meditate on Vulcan, and I should say at the front of the book of the 17 Steps, Amanda says it, and I'm paraphrasing, don't expect that you'll have an easy month, but it will bring issues up. That's the nature of that particular meditation system, is it actually brings up personality issues that are the opposite of the qualities you're trying to embody. Yeah? So let's suppose you've meditated on Vulcan, yeah, and it seems to have brought a few things up and now you feel a bit balanced with it, yeah, and then you start to meditate on whatever your Sun is, it'll start all over again, you know, so it's like a house cleaning that never really finishes. Okay, so Neptune brings in idealism and devotion and is particularly suited to Cancer and Scorpio, yeah, and then Uranus, which transmits the ceremonial ray, the 7th ray, the violet ray. Did I say Neptune is ruby red? No. Okay, so Neptune's ruby red and Uranus is violet. Yeah? And Uranus is particularly suited to people with Libra. Moon Libra, Sun Libra, Libra rising. Yeah? So you should be able to look at those 3 and go, okay, there's at least 3 of these 7 rays that are going to fit my Moon, my Sun and my Ascendant, unless you're a double person. Okay? I was actually going through the sacred planets, but it's true to say that Sagittarius is governed by the Earth, which happens to be one of the non-sacred planets, which is why I didn't mention it. But there is a meditation for the Earth. Yeah? So it doesn't mean to say that because you're a Sagittarian, you're more non-sacred than someone else. It doesn't mean that at all. Okay. It's hard to explain, so I won't try. Okay. But Sagittarius is connected to the Earth. Did I leave Leo's the Sun? Did I say that Leo's connected to Jupiter? No, I think I just said Aquarius, didn't I? Beg your pardon, I left the Leos out. So Jupiter governs Leo and Aquarius. Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius and Pisces. You see my brain's away, far, far away. Yes. So if you've got Pisces, the Sun, the Moon or the Ascendant in Pisces, then Vulcan has a connection, but it's also associated with Pluto, because Pluto is one of the non-sacred ones. Non-sacred.
Is Pisces both Vulcan and Pluto?
Sorry. It's technically Pluto. It's technically Pluto, but eventually we clean up our Pluto and we end up in Vulcan. Hard to explain why. Okay, because they do tend to mix and match a bit. So when we're working with the energy of Vulcan, for instance, then there are all kinds of beings who are connected in to the planet Vulcan. Yeah? It's a bit like, we have Icelandic people, we have Danes, we have Australians. Yeah? The planets have beings that's their home planet. Yeah? They connect there. Yeah? So that when we work with the energy of Vulcan, which is the first ray, well, we will connect in with the Lord Moira and the Lord Michael and Archangel Mary and so on. Okay? And the angels of justice are particularly connected to the planet Vulcan, as is Joan of Arc. Yeah? And here you'll see Pluto down the bottom. And it's hard because what I'm talking about is the order of the solar system. It's quite large.
When you say Lord Michael, you mean
Archangel Michael? Yes, yes. The energy of the planet Vulcan, it's all about fire, purification of fire. The fire David is very connected to Vulcan and the first ray. You'll see in the meditation book that the qualities that we're looking for when we meditate on Vulcan are devotion, self-sacrifice and willingness to cooperate. And they're qualities that are particularly difficult if we've got, let's say, the moon in Taurus or for the Taurian energy. It's exactly the right medicine for Taurus. Yeah? And so these are the qualities that are guaranteed to bring up all the problems associated with sacrificing the self or cooperating or devotion. So when you start to meditate on Vulcan, you often get the opposite, a bit like I was doing with my Mars. Yeah? You get the opposite. You get your shadow comes out, and if you persist, then towards the end of the month, yeah, then you start to move closer in that direction. That's the symbol for Vulcan. Jupiter, sacred planet of the second ray. It's Jupiter, a large body, bringing in love and wisdom. And the qualities are expansiveness, kindness and creativity. Okay? So these are exactly the qualities that are suited to the Leo and the Aquarians, yeah? who have a connection to Jupiter. And you'll soon discover, if you meditate on these planets, that some of the planets seem quite easy to meditate on, and other ones are just really, for you, quite difficult. Yeah? And that's because the reason for this is that it's not just any old meditation book. It's a book that was written by a teacher, spiritual teacher for the planet. So it has... these are words of power. And in the book there are phrases to say and particular meditations. Okay, so if you're connecting to the planet Jupiter or the Sun meditation in the book, these are the beings that it's like you've dialed their number. You've rung Jupiter. The Lord DK says hello. Or one of the angels of the Lord Cthulhu. You've dialed Jupiter. This is their home planet. You've connected in. You've said, I think I'd like some Jupiter help, please. Buddha angels who work for the Christ. Yeah? The energy of the Lady Asadara. And so this is what's so interesting about this meditation book, is that you can, 1 minute you're meditating on the planet Jupiter, the next thing you feel like you've got a connection around you and you don't know who it is or what it is, but you feel blissful. This is probably one of them. I can send you this slideshow, don't try and write it all down. Okay, so if we're meditating on Saturn and we'd like to connect and to use the energy of active intelligence more, then really what we're asking for is to strengthen the qualities of silence, justice and endurance within us. Yeah? So all Capricorns. Yeah? This is particularly good for them. And you could say all people who are aspiring to move to the path of discipleship. This will bring up the issues, absolutely guaranteed. And in the long run, it will help with endurance and justice and silence. There's another way that, as Ananda says in the book, you can start from the beginning and you go all the way through. You can do that, take you 3 years. Or you can pick and choose whatever you like. Or you can look at your chart and see which planets in my chart really need some work. Yeah? And you can either do that by looking at the planets on a month-to-month level that you're currently working with, or you can look at your natal chart and say, which is the one that's in the biggest trouble? I'll start there. Like I said, I tried my Mars. I couldn't bear it. Okay. So there's different ways of working with the book, and no one way is the right way. Yeah? There's the symbol that the meditation starts with when you're working with the energy of Saturn, and you see the circle of spirit up above the square of matter. Saturn and also the Earth and also Vega are all connected into the third ray. Okay? So if you meditate on the Earth, which is for Sagittarians, or you meditate on Vega, which is beyond our solar system, or you meditate on Saturn, these are some of the beings who are liable to come. Yeah? You'll get the Holy Spirit angels, or the energy of the White Tara, or the energy of Lord Paul the Venetian, or the Spirit of Resurrection. And you'll start, the thing about understanding who the beings are that come is just to pay attention to the subtleties. If you've got third ray beings coming in a meditation or a service or a healing, they never stop moving, because the third ray never stops moving. Whereas if the first ray being comes, it's blue and it won't move, it's a bit of a clue. Yeah? Okay. Alright, so Mercury, the planet Mercury is, they call it the star of conflict, and it's really the planet to assist us balance all the conflicts within and without. And it governs harmony through conflict, and it's particularly associated with relationships. And most people think, oh, it's Venus that governs relationships. Yeah, but esoterically it's Mercury. So if you're having a relationship problem, meditate on Mercury, and it'll show you your heart of the conflict. The qualities that you're looking for when you meditate on Mercury are this inner balance, inner strength and respectfulness. And this is the symbol. And the symbols are portals, and they take you to other places. It's like if you meditate on a candle for a while, you'll go somewhere else, beyond the candle. Yeah? Same thing happens with these symbols. So you can meditate with the book open in front of you, and after a while you get to know the symbol and you know the words, and they're quite simple. And the most important thing with the 17 steps to perfection is don't change the words. They're mantric words of power. You're not meant to say, I don't like that word, I'll get rid of it and put another one in. Okay. Mercury, as well as Sirius, the moon, and Ceres, all work with the fourth ray energy. So you meditate on any of those from the book, and you'll get the Ascension Angels, and you'll get the energy of the Lady Isis, or the Angels of Sirius, or, for reasons I don't quite understand, extraterrestrials. Seem to come in through Mercury and Uranus. Yeah. Okay. Venus.
Which sign?
Aries and Virgo for Mercury. Yeah, or anything on the fourth ray.
Well, say you've been using the meditations on the discs, and you have no problem with Mercury meditation, you actually like it, and you had trouble with the moon meditation. But they're sort of still presenting the same power in a sense, or maybe not.
It'd probably happen the other way around, and it's hard to explain why, except that the moon is a non-sacred planet. And so, as I said, we're working through the moon, then the sun, then the ascendant, then the ruler of the ascendant in an ascending order. So if I start with the moon, for instance, I am working with fourth ray energy, and maybe I've got some of that under control, and then I try and shift to Mercury, and maybe I've got Aries rising, and all of a sudden it's bringing in a higher frequency of the fourth ray, and that might upset me.
Can it be the other way around?
It can be, because it's very specific. You see, I'm talking in broad general terms, but everyone's chart's different.
Yeah.
If you've got a Moon Mercury square, for instance, you won't be able to do either of them easily. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's very specific to our own, because we have various degrees which we have mastered or not mastered the energies of these planets. And we don't know until we start meditating on them how easy or difficult they are. Okay. So the fifth ray, this is a picture I found on the internet of inspiration of the conclave on Venus. I just thought it was quite lovely. You can see there's this sort of old man. Obviously, people think of God as the old man sitting up the back. So Venus will bring us the energy of truth. Very beautiful planet. Particularly associated with love, loyalty and goodness. These are the qualities. And again, the portal that takes us to Venus will take us to the energy of unconditional love. Yes, and so with this fifth ray energy, love in action, also governs Minerva. And some of the beings, angels of purity, angels of truth, the energy of the Lady Pallas Athena, Lord Hilarion, the beings from the ashram on Crete. Neptune brings in the sixth ray of idealism and devotion. And I suppose I could say that generally speaking, because we've left the Piscean age and we're moving into the Aquarian age, the Lord DK says that we have a great influx of second ray souls coming to the earth for the next 2,000 years, and an increasing influx of fourth ray souls. Whereas in the previous age, we've had a lot of sixth ray souls. But as the sixth ray is finishing and the seventh ray is coming in, this is what Lord DK says, that there are large amounts of second ray souls coming to learn about love, and an increasing amount of fourth ray souls who have this intergalactic connection, who may not have had that many lifetimes on Earth, who are here to help us resolve our conflicts so we can move this planet to sacred. Yeah. I'm off the track again. So, if you meditate on Neptune, then what you're looking for is greater purity in your life, strengthening your intuition, and getting a sense of unity and connection between you and your soul. This is the symbol to meditate upon it. One of the very first times that I meditated on the planet Neptune, I didn't know at that point that I had sixth ray soul. I would have said to you, like I said, I'm not interested in religion, even though the sixth ray is the ray of devotion. So I spent, until I was at 30, closing any book that had the word God in it, emphatically. Didn't realise I was in reaction, I just didn't like those books. Anyway, so I didn't know that I had a sixth ray soul, didn't know that I had a strong connection to the Lord Jesus, but I found this book, decided I'd meditate on Neptune. I had a very profound connection with the Lord Jesus by what I'm certain was the Sea of Galilee. And if you meditate on Neptune, it can take you to all kinds of places. That just happened to be my particular experience, And it cracked something in me. Some of this, I don't believe in God. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It broke something, one of my ego's resistance barriers that I didn't even know that I was trying to break. I had no idea. I just knew that meditation was going to help because I hit a brick wall trying to study things. Yeah. And everybody's experiences are very different, but I had a very profound connection, and then started to realise that I had the sixth ray, and of course Mars is on the sixth ray too. So having all these problems with Mars and having a wonderful, exalted experience meditating on Neptune. It took me a while to put the two together and go, oh God, I've got a bit of work to do around this sixth ray. Okay, so the beings that we connect to through the sixth ray, the Lady Magdalene, the Lord Jesus, and the angels of forgiveness. And these are just some of the beings. There's so many more. One of these days I'll make a list. Okay, the planet Uranus brings in the violet. Seventh ray, very good for the Librans. I like this picture of Uranus. It's very space-like. If you're working with Uranus, really what you're looking for is non-attachment, discrimination, and the capacity to give. Yeah? Very good for the Librans. There's the symbol. And who comes when you meditate on Uranus? The violet fire angels and also the Holy Spirit angels. They'll move quite happily between the third and the seventh ray. The energy of the Lady Portia, the energy of the Lord Master Ra, and the intergalactic, as I said, are connected into Uranus and Mercury. Oh, and the other thing that happens when we meditate upon Mercury is that we connect into the devas who hold sacred space. Yeah, so in Australia, we can connect into the Aboriginal ancestors. Yeah? Here you probably connect into through your sagas. Yeah? This is through Mercury. Yeah? You'll connect into the devas who hold sacred space. Speaking of sacred spaces, that's a Golfos photograph that I found. The Sun in Aquarius, the Moon's in Pisces, and Scorpio's rising. Yeah. So your Sun in Aquarius says meditate on Jupiter, and then you have Jupiter on top of the Sun. So that tells me that you have good karma and grace with the energy of Jupiter. So this is where it gets contradictory. And then you have the Moon in Pisces, which is meditate on Pluto. Yeah? And then you have Scorpio rising.
I did those things.
Okay? Yeah. Scorpio rising, which gives the ruler of Mars. So you've got to work on Jupiter, Mars and Pluto. Yeah. And that's just one example. Everybody's chart is very different. And it's quite interesting to see other people's charts. And if you don't know, it's the blue lines in the chart that are all the good karma, and the red lines in the chart that are the work we have to do. Yeah? And most of us have got an interesting combination thereof. And the fortunate thing is that we're not meant to work it all out in any one year. That there's particular cycles. That every year there's certain lessons to work out. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah. Okay, so how do you find your soul ray? I've got a little booklet. I don't think I brought any here this year called, what's it called? I've forgotten. The Joy of Service. Have you seen that little booklet?
Yeah. You wrote it last time.
Yeah. That little booklet. I've tried to compile a lot of the information about a service working on behalf of your soul as opposed to just having a career. Yeah, vocational service. And in it I've put some of the guidelines and ways to help you identify what your soul ray is. Okay. You can always email me and I can send you a PDF or something like that. You know, I have it as a PDF I can send, or you could buy it, whatever. But how to find out what the soul ray is? One of the strongest ways is to see what connections you have through the work. Yeah? So that if you feel a very strong calling to work as a teacher, but you don't know how to do it, and you feel very anxious about it, and you feel like you can't do it, then it's a goal that's ahead of you. Yeah? Whereas if you feel like, I'm currently a teacher, and I do it quite well, and yes, there's other things that I could learn, but it's not something that's calling me, then it's probably something you've integrated from the past. And the past will be part of your soul ray, or of your personality ray, and the future challenges are part of your soul ray. Yeah? Like for instance, I'll talk to anybody about anything. You know, I have a second ray personality, which is second ray people they like people. Yeah? I've got the sun in Aquarius, so I've got a strong ability to talk to people, and I've had that all my life. Didn't have to develop it, you know. Could never shut me up. Yeah? Talk to anybody. Yeah? Everybody's got parts of their personality that's been with them their whole life, yeah? So it was very easy and obvious to me to have a career where I talk to people, because that's give my family some relief. My kids to this day cannot understand that people pay me for me to talk to them. They think it's the biggest mystery under the sun, because they pay to shut me up. So just to use that as an example of my second-ray personality, yeah? Because the second ray is love and wisdom, generally good with people and very interested in books. So you can pick someone who's got strong second ray. You walk into a house and they've got books, you think, second ray somewhere here. Yeah? Whereas, for instance, my movement to the mystical, to the spiritual path, into any church, was full of, will I? Yeah? Very, very difficult. And I actively avoided it until I managed to avoid it. Although my mother says that I was the only child that insisted on going to Sunday school, and she was trying to keep me away from it. But then something happened, I don't know what. So if you look at your own life, you can see an area of your life that you avoid. You know? If it's the sixth ray, if your soul ray is the sixth ray like mine, you'll have big issues with religion. Big issues. If your soul ray is the fifth ray, you'll have big issues with things like science or knowledge or the rational mind. Because we all have big issues where our soul ray is. If your soul ray is the fourth ray, you'll have big issues with resolving conflict or big issues with creativity and the manifesting of it. Yeah? So you always look for where some of the biggest problems are. If you're trying to say, well, there's 7 rays, which ones do I feel comfortable with? And which ones are potentially harder to work out? The harder ones are generally connected to the soul ray. Another clue to identifying your soul ray is to follow your career change. Yeah? So I work now, I talk to people, but I also work as a spiritual healer. That wouldn't have developed if I hadn't have been making movement towards the sixth ray, the idealism and devotion. Yeah? Whereas somebody else might have worked as a healer from a very young age, a doctor or whatever, and they're moving gradually towards being an artist. Yeah? So the artists are on the fourth ray. Yeah? So there's something about, and what I'm talking about here is the science of esoteric psychology and the planets. Esoteric astrology and esoteric psychology, they kind of merge like that. So there's lots of clues. The kind of work you do or the kind of work you're called to do. Yeah? The attraction that you have to particular colours. Yeah? Or particular... Yes.
I'm always very red.
Always very red? Yeah.
Jesus and my
And you see, I wear a lot of blue, and I haven't got the fourth ray soul, but I've got fourth ray very strong, and I work for spiritual hierarchy with the fourth ray. I have very strong Aries in my chart, and I work for Lady Isis. And so I wear those colours, even though I'm not a fourth ray soul. And in fact, there's not as many fourth ray souls on the planet at the moment as there will be in 100 or 200 years' time. Yeah. The ascendant and the ruler is another key. So can I just use someone's chart as an example? The sun in Leo, and she has the moon in Cancer, and then she has Sagittarius rising. Okay. So the fact that she's got the sun in Leo, I'm trying to talk in a simple way, because there's 2 systems of rulership. If I look at the chart, there's one system that governs the personality in the chart and one system that governs the soul. And so if I just focus on the soul energy, all right, she has Sagittarius rising. Sagittarius is connected to the third ray. Yeah? So we would know that with the energy of Saturn, or if in her healing she works with the Holy Spirit angels or the White Tara, then she's been true to her third ray, Sagittarius. Yeah? That's not necessarily her soul ray, but it's a path to take her. Yeah? And then I look further and I see that the Earth, which is the ruling planet of her Sagittarius, is in the sign of Aquarius. Yeah? Now Aquarius holds the second ray and a bit of the fifth ray. I won't explain why, it's too hard to explain why, but I look at it and I think, okay, well there's something about the second ray as the Earth sits in Aquarius. So if she was to meditate on a combination of the second and the third ray, they will progress her further on the path. Yeah? So if you were to meditate upon the Earth in the 17 steps, or Saturn, or Jupiter, yeah, those three that have got the connection to the second and the third ray, that will move you forward. In order to ascertain the soul ray, then we have to say, well, what's the kind of vocational work that she'd love to be doing? So I'll ask her the question, what do you do now for a job? Healing energy. There's different ways of working with healing. You can work with healing through the fifth ray as a doctor, or you can work with healing through the second ray as a counsellor, or you can work with healing through a few rays as a spiritual healer. Yes, and you see the earth healing is because of the seventh ray that I was talking about. Personality bodies. It might govern her physical body, it might govern her personality, but she's got the seventh ray somewhere, and it sits in the Cancer part of the chart. The other thing that is very useful, and as you can see, it's incredibly complicated, you know, and everyone's chart's different. Another thing that's very useful is to pay attention to the symbols that come. If you meditate and say, what's my soul ray? One person might get a blue star.
A teacher, can it be on a sixth ray?
Depends what they teach.
Children. What things they have to learn to do.
You see, in order for a teacher of Sunday school, or a teacher of mysticism, or a teacher of spirituality, would have the sixth ray. Okay? Whereas a teacher of children on its own is probably more second, the third, or the fifth.
Yes.
Yeah. But, you know, if you meditate and you ask, what's my soul ray, show me in a colour or a symbol, yeah? Then if you know which colours or symbols connect to which rays, you can work out the code. Yeah? So, for instance, if you say, what's the work that I'd love to do, and you write that down, then what's the symbol that colour comes through, and what's the master that I'm connected to, and you might find that if you read about the different lords and ladies of the hierarchy, there'll be one or two in particular that you feel very attracted to. You don't know why. Yeah? And generally it'll be because they are connected to a planet, connected to a ray that you have an affinity with, either for your future work or from past lives. And then there's the soul stanzas that are in this little book, Joy of Service, but they're initially in Esoteric Psychology 2 by the Lord Dwell. If you've seen these are little stanzas that are very descriptive of the tests and challenges for the soul on the different rays. Yeah? And often when you read them, and I run workshops where if you read them, you can have a very strong affinity to one of they're like old-fashioned poems, I suppose. And some of them feel like they're talking just to you. And other ones you read it and it just doesn't connect. You know? So if you pick up Esoteric Psychology and look for the soul stanzas, you can look in the thing in the back of the book, you can begin to identify 2 or 3 of the rays where your soul might be. Yeah? So you narrow it down. And then you look at your chart, yeah? And you can narrow it down. Then you meditate on it and you narrow it down. Then you look at what your vocation is. And slowly, and it can take a while, but it's very important. It's a very important pursuit, because once you've identified what your soul ray is, it's like the GPS. If you don't give it the right address, you're going to get lost.
So, GPS tracking film.
Yeah, that's right. If you want to get to the right place, you need to be able to really focus in on that. And it can take a long time, and no one else can really tell you exactly what it is, but it's a very interesting study to find out. And it will go beyond what your sun is or beyond what your moon is. And then, of course, once you've identified what your soul ray is, then you have to resolve the problems between your second ray, between your personality ray and your soul ray. So, for instance, if someone's got strong first ray, but they've also got strong second ray, there's a struggle going on between being strong or being loving. Yeah? And the combination of the rays, if someone's got, let's say, the seventh ray strong, trying to move towards, let's say, the second ray, then that has particular tests and challenges. And there's so much of the esoteric literature that will teach you about that. And this is a whole new science called esoteric psychology, that is the way psychology will operate in 100, 200, 300 years' time. And it's the science of light, and astrology is connected in with it, but it's the way psychology is moving. It just hasn't got there yet. And it's an incredibly useful body of knowledge to study for yourself, and if you work with people, it's an incredibly useful interpersonal skill to have, to understand the science of the seven rays, because you begin to recognise some of the problems in a person you're working with, or a co-worker, or a client, or whoever. It's very, very, very useful. To say nothing of family. Okay, hopefully I've given you some